Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
And now we welcome you into the ultimate segment of Liberty Nation Radio, which we entitle Talkin Liberty, as we welcome back in, ready for the big build-up, our guardian of individual liberty, LibertyNation.com, legal affairs editor, constitutional lawyer, Scott Cosenza. If you can't shine after that introduction, you never will.
It's like Christmas came early, Tim. Hello, and thank you.
Thank you again for coming back. Now, Obamacare is a law that they're trying to dismantle piece by piece in this sort of patchwork of things that are legal and others that no longer are. And it turns out that the Obamacare insurance mandate has been now struck down by a federal appeals court. How important is this?
Well, I know it's like catnip for you, Tim, which is why I put it at number one. It probably is not the most significant decision in the Obamacare litigation. But what happened was last year, a federal judge in Texas ruled that because the individual the price or fine of failure to comply with the individual mandate was zero, then it couldn't be said to be a tax. That was how the Supreme Court had justified allowing the mandate to exist. Roberts called it a tax, and therefore it was legal. So then the question became, well, if there's no tax, then it can't be legal. Then the mandate can exist. And and that's what the judge said. Well, we just had a ruling now from the Circuit Court of Appeals, which overruled that particular part of the judge's order. And what I mean by that, Tim, is the judge said because there's not a valid tax here, the entirety of the Obamacare law has to fail because there's no justification for it. What the appellate court has said to that judge is, go back and have another look at that. We're not saying that the individual mandate is legal, and in fact, it's not. That's what the 2-1 decision, two Republican-appointed justices, one George W. Bush, one Donald Trump judge, I said justice, they're appellate court judges, and one dissenting Jimmy Carter appointee, have said the mandate is not okay. It is unconstitutional. But in contravention to the last year's ruling, we're not ready to say that means the entirety of the law needs to be thrown out. This
is what keeps happening.
Yeah.
Right, that they want that the anti-Obamacare forces want the whole law tossed out because it hangs on the individual mandate, where the pro-Obamacare people are saying, well, the basic structure of the program is going to remain in place no matter what. Now, let me ask you this question.
It's called severability, by the way. That's the legal issue involved in this case.
Right. And we've heard about severability ever since Obamacare got passed. To what extent, as John Roberts did, is the Supreme Court entitled to reassign a category of revenue collected by the government? In other words, it was not called a tax, and then John Roberts decided to recategorize it as a tax. How is that something within the purview of the Supreme Court of the United States?
Tim, it's been a while since I read the U.S. Constitution from start to finish, but I can assure you the last time I did read it, I did not find justification for that kind of ruling within the document.
To say the least. All right. You're such a master of understatement, Scott. Now let's go to your favorite state. We all know what that is. Pennsylvania. You always find a story, not that they're not legitimate, but the Pennsylvania Attorney General unilaterally changes the definition of a firearm and tells the state police to treat parts of firearms as firearms.
It just so happens that the two states I have most familiarity with, Pennsylvania and Virginia, and their gun laws are popping off right now. Yes. We had the Sanctuary City movement, which is ongoing in Virginia, and the Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro, Tim, jumped into the fray in a massive blow against gun rights by unilaterally declaring that firearm parts, which is to say parts which could not be assembled into a firearm absent tooling and know-how and other things, are to be considered firearms. I think that it is a staggering, really a breathtaking power grab, an unconstitutional one that will really impact the lives of Pennsylvanians in a very bad way. The few who will get caught up. I'm not suggesting this is an item that most people are concerned with, firearm parts, but for the ones that do, They were operating legally last week, and now they're supposedly felons, according to the AG.
So this is the camel's nose pushing a little bit further under the tent. Now, let me ask you
Might be a
this.
full hump.
Because they can't get full-on gun control laws, so they're trying these end runs with little elements of guns and their parts. Next question is, how then are parts of a gun to be treated differently than, say, ammunition?
Well, the ammunition cannot be converted to actually fire ammunition, is presumably the distinction there, whereas the part could be. These are about...
But isn't that what I'm sort of heading towards isn't that the next step to say that if you have ammo, then that shows intent to use a gun, which...
somebody who has power and is motivated to use those levers of power to restrict rights absent justification, then yes, Tim, ammunition, any manner of restriction can and will come down the pike.
Okay, Scott, switching gears to New Jersey, where lawmakers, my favorite phrase for politicians, pass marijuana referendum for the 2020 ballot, as New Jersey could become about the 10th state in the country to legalize recreational marijuana. Will that be for both use and sale?
Let's steer away from recreational and say non-prescription use,
okay,
or treat
sure.
marijuana like alcohol, I think is a better way to put it. And yes, this is a real profile and courage, Tim. The New Jersey legislature couldn't go ahead and pass the law themselves, but like I think every state now that will have, presuming that New Jersey goes, that will have laws that treat marijuana like alcohol, have done so by citizen referendum. The politicians of that state did not have the courage to change the law and reverse course on the drug law. The citizens did, and I'm confident that the citizens of New Jersey will likely follow the citizens of so many other states when given the choice and turn away from prohibition.
I'm sure that the decision to put marijuana on the ballot in 2020 has nothing to do with a politician's thirst for tax revenue in a very responsible fiscal state like New Jersey.
The story reporting this says that it's a $200 to $300 million revenue stream, likely, depending on the actual rate imposed. There will be, some taxes imposed on the sale. So they can't keep their to deny themselves an income stream is antithetical, of course, to the politician.
They're not going to do that. But that's the tax, basically, on marijuana users for being able to simply be left alone by the government like people that use alcohol. Okay. The feds have been reaping data from 1,500 phones in the largest reported reverse location warrant. I don't know exactly the details of this story, but it sounds scary.
Well, it is very scary, Tim, because one of the hallmarks of a kind of what we would consider to be a proper warrant procedure is that specificity is involved in terms of what are you looking for and the probable cause to justify that warrant. And what we have here is the exact and metaphysical opposite of specificity. They know a certain crime was committed in a certain place. That's all they know. They don't know that the perpetrator of that crime even owned a cellular phone or an electronic device. But what they've decided, Tim, is to just dragnet all the data from that area and then sort of reverse engineer. Well, we know if there was an arson in this place, and then in the other place we can cross-reference. And no one has ever said, Tim, that eliminating all privacy won't be a boon to law enforcement efficiency. It certainly will. The problem is the penalty when it comes to our privacy and our data. And there were 1,500 people's data that were reported on this warrant. So at least 1,499 have had their privacy violated.
On that note, thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Tim.
This program, Liberty Nation Radio and LibertyNation.com's own podcasts, The Uprising, hosted by Scott, with generous appearances by yours truly, and The Rabbit Hole, Politics and Prose, where past is prologue. All of them available on demand anytime, anywhere at LibertyNation.com. So that is it for this week, but we'll be back at you next week for our special year-end program. Until then, this is Tim Donner saying, stand up for liberty, and we'll see you next time on Liberty Nation Radio.